over there, a torch.
I might have a chance if I go alone. Wait there. I'll be back soon.
Alright.
I bet you weren't expecting someone like me to make a review on a modern game. Well, I will, here and there. Although I prefer retro games, or specifically DOS games, this one captured my interest both as a game designer and a gamer for its original premise, gorgeous medieval setting, deep character building, and overall superb atmosphere. If you're wondering where it came from, it originally started development in either 2016 or early 2017 when it was announced by an indie company. Yes, an indie company called Asobo Studio, despite looking like a AAA game originally set to be titled The Plague. It was their first original title since Fuel in 2008, and the company wanted to make a narrative-driven experience similar to games like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons and The Last of Us, which you will see that this game has a lot of resemblance to. The main theme of the game was family and character relationships, both of which are extremely important in both the story and the gameplay. I'll go into more detail later on. The game was released March 13th, 2019 on Steam, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. I really wish there was like a collector's edition or something, but being a PC gamer, I spent my money on that one, and that one only came out on Steam, and I didn't want to pay double just to get another copy, but physical this time. So no unboxing for this video. Also, mainly because being a game of this generation, all it has is the box art and the disc. So here's the box art, here's the back, and here's the disc. Bam! Virtual unboxing. I always make it a point to myself to physically own any game I review, but in here it seemed kind of pointless in this situation. Actually, there was a rare press kit and an Anno 1800 Pioneers edition, both of which, even now so shortly after the release, are pretty damn difficult to find. I've dropped a link in the description if you want to take a look at an unboxing for those. So after starting up the game and setting up the brightness settings, you should probably go into the options and adjust your controls and whatnot. Even as someone who plays primarily on a PC, I'm still going to say that the game plays much better with a controller than a keyboard and mouse. It's still playable and it's not bad at all by any means, but it feels like the movement and the controls were made with a controller in mind. There's lots of other games that feel better with a controller, but almost all of those are post 2010. So for this one, with how it feels, I would recommend having one just in case. I would also recommend the PC version over the consoles as well, mainly for the much better visual quality and smoother frame rate, granted you have a beefy enough PC. A little side note though, there will be some frame rate drops regardless of the hardware you have, but I'm pretty sure they're currently fixing that up. So first off, the story of this game is really good and really well written. I'm gonna have to spoil bits and pieces of the first few chapters to discuss the gist of the rest of the game, so if that bothers you, then just stop watching this and go play the game. It's really good. If it doesn't bother you and you can deal with the somewhat expected twists of the first few chapters, then continue onwards. So the game takes place in medieval France between 1348 and 1349 during the Plague era. The story starts with you playing as 15-year-old Amicia de Rune, out in the fields with your dad, who's a French nobleman, and your pet doggo.
He's an outlaw, loose and running, came the whisper from each lip.
Everything goes fine until somehow the doggo gets stuck in the ground and killed, and it freaks Amicia out. So Amicia and her dad go running back home, and she's trying to go find her mom to tell her the terrible news. She finds her brother Hugo, which is then revealed hasn't spent very much time with Amicia over the years, as well as him being infected with the plague. Although it's revealed that the mother has been messing around with some potions and stuff to help him fight the plague and not be very contagious. There's more to that, but I'm not going to bother spoiling. After leaving the room and seeing Hugo for the first time in however long it's been, these people come and kill the dad and start looking for you, your brother, and your mother to kill off the entire family. And this isn't ever really clear why this happens until much later on in the game. But it is a strong starting point to keep gamers intrigued with the story, and it's with this that the stealth mechanics are introduced. So your mom helps you and Hugo sneak out to the forest while getting killed herself, leaving you and Hugo now as orphans. There's hundreds of other people that want the both of you dead too. So after that and escaping from all the attackers, you have to go and find Hugo's doctor to help him with the sickness. And this is the first chapter and basically introduction to the game. If this captured your interest, then you'll most likely end up really enjoying the story. There's much more depth and plot twists and whatnot, but this is one of those games that just shouldn't be spoiled at all, because it's so good. So to put it lightly, throughout the game, you'll be meeting other people, visiting a different location in almost all 17 of the chapters, and you'll be gaining new abilities throughout the way. The character development is one of the best things about this game without a doubt, and they help the game feel very... I don't know what the word is, but it's great. For example, Amicia is a very humble, innocent girl who quickly has to change her mindset in order to save her life. When she kills someone for the first time to protect her brother, she feels very sick and distraught about it. Went from an innocent girl to a murderer within seconds. Things like this are very notable and are very impactful to the story and the development of, well, not just Amicia, but like all of the main characters in the game. You'll see what I'm talking about when you play it for yourself. I also can't talk about the game without talking about the graphics, cause holy shit, this is one of the most beautiful looking games I have ever seen to date. And trust me when I say I'm usually not a graphics whore or someone that really focuses on them. I play DOS games for f***'s sake. But you're probably either blind or just ungratefully picky if you can't agree that these are some of the most gorgeous looking graphics you'll see today, from an indie company of all things. Everything looks beautiful and extremely well detailed, like really detailed. For example, most games would use regular wooden tiles and stuff, but in here they're individually created pieces of wood, literally handcrafted to the core. You can tell this because you can see right through the little spaces if you look hard enough like you can in real life. Then the glare you get when looking through a window with the sun's light passing through is really eye-popping. The amount of detail on the characters, the facial expressions, the hair, the fur on this coat, just everything. Absolutely amazing stuff. Though it should be noted, like I mentioned earlier, that this is much more visually appealing on the PC. The PS4 and Xbox One versions are probably equivalent to the game on PC being ran on medium settings with a locked frame rate of 30. Pretty stable without any drops, but still 30. The PC version goes to 60 or 120 depending on the monitor you have, but it can drop depending on your settings and hardware. As a side note, you do need a somewhat decent machine to play this game. Nothing too crazy, but if you don't have a PC dedicated to gaming, don't expect to be able to run it well. I have a 1060 Ti with max Q, and the game runs fairly well on high settings, with a high of 60 most of the time and occasional dropping in the 40s in really intensive areas. You might need at least a 1080 to be able to max the game out on ultra settings without any issues. The beautiful graphics are of course a plus, but what makes it stand out even more is, to me, the level design. Everything is designed so carefully and well crafted. The locations are all crammed with very gorgeous looking scenery and can help you feel like you're there in the same time period. It kind of reminds me a little of The Witcher 3, not just in the visuals but in the atmosphere, in the music, and, well, the time period. I know I keep praising the visuals, but I really can't get enough of that in the level design. What really impresses me with it the most is that this isn't even a huge, massive, big budget engine like you would expect. This is made with Asobo's in-house engine. It shows how well hard work can pay off if you really put your mind in the right direction. While the visuals are astonishing and the game is a story-centric narrative experience overall, I think the gameplay also helps the game shine very well. Most of the game plays with you either running from place to place with Hugo or others, moving through the world very stealthily, or solving environmental puzzles. During the stealth sections, you're sneaking and hiding from assholes that want to kill you and Hugo, and in other sections, it's either moving items around, shooting things with this slingshot to make something happen, or the game's main mechanic, creating light in certain areas to scare away these plague-ridden rats. These rats appear very early on, and to me are one of the most interesting mechanics I think I've seen in recent memory. They swarm around in hordes throughout the levels, and they'll devour you if you get too close, but they'll run away from any source of light. This means that you can grab a torch and scare them away whenever you need to cross something, or you can use that to your advantage and extinguish a light near a guard to have the rats feast on their carcasses. These rats are impressively and very realistically responsive to your actions. For example, if you walk towards them, they get very aggressive and start coming towards you. If you shine some sort of light source at them, they all swarm away in hordes, seemingly terrified. Another thing that really shows the amount of attention to detail in this game is these rats, because most people would probably have just used these rats as particle effects with damage collision or something, but instead they made each of these rats with their own animated model and gave each of them their own AI, which is pretty ridiculous in its own right. But they were able to get a max of 5,000 rats on the screen at a given time. 5,000 individually AI-driven rats on the entire screen at any given time. Really makes me think about how they got that working properly. It's really interesting seeing stuff like this as a game designer. Once you start delving into this stuff, your mind just completely changes. But yeah, aside from the stealth, movement, and puzzles, you have to find these materials throughout the world and use them to craft alchemical substances. These are basically your weapons. You can use rocks to kill guards, things to knock them out, melt their helmets, and create and extinguish fire and a bunch of other stuff. In order to craft these substances, you can just use the weapon wield and hold a button down on the specific substance. Granted, you have enough materials. You can craft many other things too, like slingshot enhancements, pouches for ammo, and material storage and whatnot. You'll need to find crafting benches in order to do this, but you can even upgrade that and make it so that you can do it whenever you want. Overall, the mechanics and puzzles are pretty straightforward. The gameplay was very satisfying and fun to play for the most part, but to be completely honest, I felt that the stealth sections were rather poorly done. And that's not a good thing because this is a stealth-centric game. I was able to predict where the enemies would move, their walking patterns, able to sneak past them and all of that without even really trying most of the time. I don't know, man. I'm not sure if this is because I just learned about AI patterns and nav meshes recently and how they work, or because the game's enemies are predictable, but I'll let you be the judge of that if you decide to play it on your own. I mean, it kinda looks like those plague rats were made with much better AI than the guards trying to kill you. What the hell is even going on here? Look at this.
Away from the bridge.
Yes, gotcha.
346 minutes later.
If I fight, you're dead. Finally, cat.
There's moments like this all the time, and I'm not sure if this was partly done in order to make it more fair on the stealth sections, but I think that's stupid. If the AI was better, this game would be a more hefty challenge to complete, which would be a good thing in my book. That, plus there's also some sections that make you feel like you're in huge danger, but felt kind of like they were designed to let you run away. This took a lot of the challenge away from me, which kind of sucked because I wanted this to be a nearly flawless masterpiece. It was definitely heading that way, but I don't know. I'm not saying this game is easy by any means, because there's definitely some pretty challenging moments, but I feel like they could have easily pushed away a little on the handholding. The game also isn't as long as I would have hoped. It took me between 10 to 15 hours to finish, with me taking my time. And yeah, that's normal for a AAA game. But I felt like for $45, it would have been at least a little bit longer, especially for such a story-centric game that has very little replay value like this. On a more positive note, the voice acting is amazing for Amicia and Hugo, as well as the parents and some of the secondary characters. Very realistically done for their ages and personalities, and they're just perfectly executed. Can't really say the same for most of the background characters like the guards and villagers. They're usually pretty hit or miss, though not all of them are bad. The sounds are all also very nicely done, like the clanking sounds of armor, wood collapsing, flames, the sounds of the fights, the sounds of shoving a rock into someone's flesh for the first time, the rats squeaking in pain. Everything is really well done and sounds as it probably should. The music is also, just like everything else, really well done. It was composed by someone named Oliver DeRiver. I am so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Please don't kill me. I have a wife and 3 kids. Well, not really, but it's planned. And it reminds me a lot of a mix between The Witcher 3's music that Percival did without any of the vocals, and some really high-budget orchestral stuff. But get this, it doesn't sound super generic or bland or boring for once. No freaking way! I really love the music in this game, and it creates this very dark, foreboding, almost helpless and depressing atmosphere. It helps you feel more connected to the game world and the tone that it's trying to set in place, and it effortlessly succeeds in that right. If you ever happen to see this, Oliver, you deserve a huge pat on the back. You managed to take a stereotypically bland and overdone style of music in video games, you know, the basic orchestral stuff that nobody ever really pays attention to anymore, and you fused it with something unique and special, and you managed to give it its own identity. More game composers definitely need to take note of this. Job well done, man. You deserve whatever award you can get on this game. So, should you play A Plague Tale: Innocence? Yes you should. Well, maybe. I would say that I really enjoyed playing through this game, despite the extremely linear gameplay, poor human AI, and average length. It wasn't necessarily a short game, and it had a pretty decent final act and closing, but really left me wanting more. I enjoyed it so much that it felt like a short 5 or 6 hour game, even though it really took me between 10 to 15 hours, with me taking my sweet ass time. But that average length might be the reason someone might not like this game. Well, that plus its linearity. So if you like open world games or RPGs where you just get to decide whatever happens and feel like the length of the game determines its value, then you might want to steer clear of this one, especially due to its $45 price tag. But to me personally, I think it's worth that price. It's got stunning visuals, it's a very emotional experience, very well written story and characters, very silky smooth movement, and overall it's just a really fun game to play through. But you won't get much replay value at all with it, so just be wary of that. If you can deal with that, then definitely go check it out, whether it's on Steam, PS4, or Xbox One. This game right here is proof that indie can be good enough to surpass AAA games. Especially since I believe that AAA games are being too commercialized and focusing more on what sells and less of what a real gamer would actually want to play. But that's a totally different video for another day. I really hope to God they make a sequel to this game someday. I really loved it. Probably might be my favorite game this year. Well, maybe Ion Maiden or Medieval will top that, but I don't know. We'll see. So stop watching this and go check it out right now.